One of my favorite things to do is flip mats. There's something about it that just gets me off beyond belief. It's one of the first ways I really started catching fish in Florida, and it's fun. I mean, there's nothing like it. It's a thrill. You know, we do it so much down here, though, that there's really, it seems like a general broad topic, but there's really a ton of intricacies that go into it. You don't just flip mats. And one of the ones I want to highlight today is kind of what I would call finesse flipping. You know, usually when we're going through mats, we're using heavy weights, not paying too much attention to how easy it's going through. We just want it to go through easy so you can get a nice fluid motion going, working through stuff. But sometimes, especially in situations where the water temp is really low, the fish are highly pressured. That actually happened quite a bit last year. Just in general, when you get fish in a weird, tweaky mood, there's some changes that you need to make, and it's changes to the general presentation. Usually when I'm thinking of it, finesse flipping relates to the weight and the bait. And, you know, taking that weight down to just what you need to get through the mat or the canopied vegetation. Oftentimes what that means is you're going to be shaking that bait on top of the mat to get it to drop through. But if you don't use that lighter weight, the fish just don't seem to bite. It's something I really ran into last year with, you know, I would pitch 1.5 areas and I could not get bit. I'd go down to a 1.25 or even try to shake a 1 on through, and I would just get bit. It would take a long time to get them to bite, but there was a clear difference between going a 1/4 ounce down. Sometimes even an 1/8. Usually I would gradient it as, you know, going a 1/4 to even a 1/2 ounce less than what you think you really need to slide through pretty quick. And, you know, you're gonna have to shake it, you're gonna have to work it to get through, but that's kind of the steps you gotta take when you're dealing with those weird fish. The other component to the finesse flipping, as I see it, is bait. And this is probably the most important component, because usually when guys are thinking of Florida fishing, or even just when you're accessing or going after bigger fish in general, no matter where you're at in the U.S., they're thinking about bigger baits, and that's what I like. I mean, I like pitching bigger baits. It seems like you get bigger bites. It's a lot of fun. It's just kind of cool, but there's times of the year, once again, in relating to the fish mood, whether it's because of temperature, pressure, whatever, that you got to get small. And ironically, even though we're oftentimes catching some pretty big fish in those mats, you know, to get those big fish to bite, we got to go small. So let's talk about bait selection real quick, because this is kind of the fun component of it too. You know, the best all-around finesse punching bait, just the standard across the board, and I'm sure you guys all know about it, but it's the Gambler BB Cricket. You know, this thing right here is probably takes more fish in a year when we get our color fronts down here than a lot of the other baits on the market. It's finesse, it's got little appendages, it's very sleek, very small. A lot of guys think it relates to the grass shrimp that we have down here. I just think it's a compact presentation. We do have crawfish under the grass, and it's small. That's really the key when it comes to this finesse punching. You don't need these big mondo baits. You know, oftentimes what's going to happen is your bait is going to look almost disproportional in comparison to the weight. So basically, the BB Cricket's a great standard. You know, one that I found of late is the culprit and credit craw. Let me show you a little trick that I do with it if I got one open here. Basically what I'll do is I'll take this in credit craw and get one out. And it's got these dangly legs on it, but it's just a nice meaty, very compact crawfish bait. I'll take these legs and I'll basically rip them off, and what I end up getting is just a small compact craw with nice appendages, punches through the mats real nice. Once again, a very small presentation. You know, it's a little wider from a girth standpoint, but once again, a small package. And you know, the same applies on the beaver end. Those are pretty much my two standards. You get your craw baits for the mats, and then you got your beaver style baits. You know, it'll basically be the same thing as what you'd normally pitch in a regular size beaver, but going down to, for instance, like the smallie beaver or something along those lines. And honestly, you're still going to get big bites, but the trick is you're actually going to get bit, because you'll find if you go through and you're using these bigger baits and you have fish knocking at the bait and not eating it, or you're just not getting bit when you know there are fish there, downsizing and going to that finesse punching approach can really be rewarding and can really be the ticket. Now, oftentimes with this presentation, just kind of as a side note, you're going to have to slow down too. If the fish are weird, if the fish are finicky, if the fish are tweaky, it's not just a size and a weight thing. It's going to be a whole mood thing, a whole sort of presentation issue. So oftentimes you're going to be pumping these baits, you know, 5, 10, 15 times. Sometimes you're even going to suspend the bait on the canopy of the mat or even just a few inches below the mat and just hold it there. Little trick at that too. I've noticed if you do have fish that are just biting on the suspend of the canopy, what you're going to want to do is not pump the bait. Oftentimes when those fish are biting right at the top of the canopy, if you pump the bait a few times and then hold it there, they end up not eating. If it's really that finicky and that tweaky of a bite, you want to pitch that bait in, drop through, bring it to the top, and stop moving it. Just keep it right at the canopy. But those are some keys for what I would call finesse punching. It's something that we do have to use quite a bit in Florida, but I think the application is pretty broad and it applies to places anywhere. Up north, you know, the rest of the southeast, especially out west. If you got clear water, if you have finicky fish, if you have high pressure situations, just going down to the smallest, lightest weight you can use to still get through. You might have to shake it a bit. And then also just downsizing your bait, going to smaller baits like the standard, like the BB Cricket, little compact craws with little appendages, you know, less movement, petite presentations, just going small, and you'll be amazed at some of the bigger bites you can get, and just getting bites where guys couldn't get bites throwing traditional size stuff. So I hope that helps you out, guys. Get out and try some finesse punching and tight lines.